Well, guys, welcome this morning. My name's Aaron. I'm one of the pastors here at Grace. If I haven't met you before, would love to do that, hear how you made your way here to the campus. Thank you guys for joining us this morning on what's a beautiful weekend, right before we go into third winter again. So just enjoy it while you can. Take your sunburn, all of that, and turn on your heat next week again. It'll be good, okay? So just grateful for a beautiful weekend. What a wonder that does for the soul and the mind sometimes. But glad you guys are here as we kind of made it up to Easter time. We've been in a series called Last Words. Got to celebrate with you last weekend. What a bunch of fun. Hope you guys had awesome time with your family as well. So we've been in this series. If you missed any of it, make sure you grab that on our YouTube channel. You can follow along, go through our Facebook page and find it. We'd love to have you catch up on this series, but we're looking at some of Jesus's last words and really his heart on display through those. And you might be asking yourself, hey, Aaron, we talked about Jesus dying last week and raising from the dead, so should we move on from that? We actually have some more of Jesus's words that we want to look at here after he was raised from the dead. And we're going to look at that before he actually left the earth. So the story is not quite over yet as far as the series go, but if you were a little confused, I understand. And we're going to look at a few more here. It'll make a little more sense. But Jesus actually appeared to some people before he left earth, right after he raised from the dead. When we celebrated Easter last week, talked about that story. And some of those people were his disciples. And he gave some last words to them that were pretty awesome, one that you might be familiar with. But today we want to look at what has been called the Great Commission, right? You've probably seen this show up before. You may have heard it. Maybe you haven't. That's fine. But this is what we're actually going to look at in Matthew 28, verses 18 through 20. We're going to look at Jesus' words there. If you need a Bible, feel free to grab one out of the seats in front of you. If you don't have one, take that home with you. We'd love for you to have that. So going to look here in Matthew 28, verses 18 through 20. This is what it says. So Jesus had raised from the dead, right? His disciples were kind of, they hadn't seen him yet, but there was... Jesus had told people the two Marys, if you read in the story, when he appeared to them at the tomb, go and tell the disciples to meet me at this place in Galilee, right? Tell my servants. So the disciples are kind of showing up here at this place on a mountain and looking to meet Jesus. And I don't know about you, I would be a little bit skeptical of that. Even though I know it's Jesus, even though I saw him die on the cross, right? I think I would still be like, is he going to show up for this? Is it really Jesus? So even in the story, as you read, you can see as they're approaching, it says some of them doubted, right? They're kind of at a distance. It wasn't until Jesus actually said this to them that they believed, right? That they saw, oh, this is really Jesus. This is him. Wow. This would have been a great moment for them. But this is what Jesus said to them, kind of his last words to his disciples. It says, then Jesus came to them and said, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always to the very end of the age. So these are kind of the last words that we see here. He gives this to the disciples. He's telling them I want you to do this, right? I'm going to leave. I'm going to give you the Holy Spirit, right? He's promised them that. I'm going to be with you, but this is what I want you to do. And so essentially what Jesus has given his disciples at this point is a mission, right? He's like, here's what I want you to do going forward, right? Here is your mission, right? Not only of the disciples here, but it's one that we have kind of picked up as the church and even in our lives, right? Is to make disciples, right? So we have this mission here that Jesus is telling them about. So we see that he says to go and do this, right? And so there's some implications here, right? It kind of took it outside of the Jewish circle, right? The followers of nation of Israel, right? It took it beyond that to the Gentiles, the rest of the people in the world. So he's saying, go out and make disciples of all nations, right? Previously, Jesus would have interacted much with a lot of people, but really particularly the nation of Israel. Right? It was very much a lot of the story of the Bible if you followed along. And so he's saying, go and make disciples, right? Baptizing them, right? Bringing them into relationship with God and the church, right? Teaching them to obey what I command. I thought this was funny. He didn't say teach them all of the super good rules and all of the theology. He said, teach them to obey what I command, right? It was almost like a practical version of what he wanted them to do. And he says, I will be with you, right? So he promises that this won't be lonely. And this is really important because when you think about a mission, what it does for us a lot of times, if I give you a mission or someone gives me a mission, what that helps a lot of times, we start to think about it, is that, I should value this mission over the practice of how I do it, right? Because we can get sucked up in how this is going to happen, but the reality is it still needs to happen because that is the mission, right? If you think about every successful thing that you know of, I am certain that they have a mission, whether it's an internal one they give to maybe their employees or as an organization, maybe it's in the tagline. I don't know if Nike's mission is just do it. That doesn't really seem like it's helping, but they probably have a mission, right? All of these successful things have a mission, something that they are trying to accomplish. And it's probably pretty specific. And so Jesus gives this one to his disciples, right? It helps make focus simple. And when we get down to it, right, what a mission actually does for you and for me and those that we give it to is a mission informs my decision making, right? Think about what's important in your life. If your mission is to have a good time at all costs, that really informs your decision making, right? If your mission is to save as much money as possible, it's why you're eating those off-brand hot dogs, that you're not really sure what's in there, right? It informs your decision making. You're not going out to the steakhouse. You're like, McDonald's McRib will do. Not sure what's in there either, but we don't have time to talk about that, all right? So it informs my decision making. Whatever my mission is for my life is going to make me make a certain set of decisions, right? And that is what Jesus is giving them a mission here, hoping that is going to inform their decision making. And so we know this to be true, right? We can think about this in a couple of ways. One of the ways we can think about this is the mission that Jesus has given here is we can think about it in terms of the church, right? The place where we all go to meet, the place that helps organize the efforts behind the mission. Or we can think about it in terms of the body of believers, right? The actual people of the church. And if you look at it in terms of the church, the place that organizes it, right? The place where I work, right? The place where Ryan works and our other staff, right? It's why the church, right, might do things different, why we might change often, why we constantly evaluate what we're doing, right, for effectiveness and saying, yeah, we've done that event for this many years. It's probably time to not do that anymore because it's not as effective to the mission that Jesus has given us, right? So you can look at it that way. What I actually want to talk about today, right, and more importantly, is how we should think about this in terms of our lives if we're followers of Jesus. How does this mission affect our lives? Because I'm pretty convinced that, as much as the church, maybe the place that organizes it can work on that and effectively serve the mission, most of that I think is really dependent on how the people of the church, right, the spiritual body of believers, the degree at which they take up that mission in their own life, right, and make that their mission. I think that is what really makes the life of the church, right? The change in communities that we see, right? The change in our world. That is how that happens. So yeah, we could talk about it in a church way, the place all day long, but what is really important and what we truly want for you guys and ourselves is to take up this mission in our own lives. And certainly we're going to be a part of the church, right? We're going to loan our abilities and our talents to that. But what really all that depends on is how much everyone picks this up in their own lives as they follow Jesus. So that's what we're actually going to talk about today is how do we do that? And here's the thing that, as we look as followers of Jesus, right, if we have been changed by the mission, we become a part of the mission. And then we keep doing that, right? Because if you have been affected by the message and the hope of Jesus, right, someone was on that mission to make disciples, to teach people about Jesus, right, to help them become a part of the spiritual body of believers. If you've been affected by that, you are now a part of the mission. And this is where it gets pretty fun for us because Jesus gives us that mission to give away to other people. And so if you're a follower of Jesus, if you're in this room and you have a relationship with Jesus, right, and you have been affected and changed by the mission that Jesus had given others, you probably could name the people who helped you see who Jesus was, helped him make sense to you. You now get to be a part of the mission. Super exciting. And Jesus said these words to the disciples. And, if you think about who the disciples are, when Jesus gave this mission to them, he knew these men have been changed by the mission I just gave. right? You think about when Jesus met them, he met them at their own place, fishermen doing whatever they were doing. And he was like, let me tell you about who my Father is. Let me tell you about who I am. Will you come with me on this mission? Right? He invited them into that. They were changed by Jesus and the mission that he gave them throughout time. And then he gave this to them, right? Because now they are a part of that mission, right? He knew that they had been changed by him. And so he kind of gave them this as his last words. And it communicated a lot of his heart here in these moments. So I want to look at, okay, what does this actually start to look like on a very practical level? How can we get this down to the ground level, right? How can we start to make this work for us? And I love what 2 Corinthians says in chapter 5. We're going to look there at what this could actually look like as we play this out in our lives. So if you want to go to 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 17 is where we're going to start. It says this, therefore, if anyone is in Christ, the new creation has come. The old has gone, the new is here. All this is from God, who reconciled us to himself through Christ and gave us the ministry of reconciliation, which is this, that God was reconciling the world to himself in Christ, not counting people's sins against them. And he has committed to us the message of reconciliation. We are therefore Christ's ambassadors, as though God were making his appeal through us. This is pretty awesome. When you start to read this and you look at the Great Commission, maybe beside that, some of Jesus' last words, you're like, oh, he didn't just say that maybe to the disciples, right? This is for all of us. Because whether we know exactly how it happened or not, right, through time, the disciples taking up this mission in their life, if you have been affected by this mission, affected by the message of Jesus, it's made its way all the way to you. It's pretty awesome when you think about it. So what we're doing is the same thing, right? And when we look at what this actually starts to look like, right? When I'm affected by that mission, what does that mean? Well, it's a new way of living, right? This verse says, the new creation has come, the old has gone. Because remember, a mission informs my decision-making, right? Maybe my mission was to always have a good time at all possible. And now it's this other thing, right? So when we accept Christ into our hearts, we have a relationship with him, it starts to we have a different mission. It starts to inform our decisions, right? It's a new creation. And we start to see God's heart, that we were reconciled to him, right? So we start to look at this and see something a little different, right? The message that God has given us is clear, right? There's lots of things that we could say about Jesus and his time on earth, but when we look at his heart, it's to reconcile us to him. That is the goal of this mission, right? Is that Jesus died on the cross so that we could be reconciled to him, and he's giving that mission now, he's giving that message for us to take to others. And this is funny, I love the word ambassador there. I have a funny story for you. This is gonna, affect your opinion of me, but that's fine, I'll share it anyways. So I'm a little bit of a weird guy. You probably already know that, just be gentle, okay? But when I think of ambassador, right, it's funny because how old is my son now? About 4 years ago almost, I bought a Subaru, all right? There's a little bit of a cult following there, okay? And so I found out that there was this thing you could apply for called being a Subaru ambassador. And yeah, that's a real thing. You know that now. And so I applied for it because I thought I might get free things. And it turns out that I did, right? But what they're hoping happens, right, as an ambassador, right, is I don't own Subaru. I didn't get any stock or anything. It's kind of a bummer, right? I didn't get anything from them except for like T-shirts and sunglasses to give away from people and like coupons, right? Just like weird stuff. I didn't really get anything, but what they're hoping from that, right, as you think as an ambassador, right, is because I believe in it, right? The reason they accept me that is because I bought a Subaru. It has all-wheel drive. I quit getting stuck in the snow almost immediately. Gets great gas mileage. I think it looks cool. It's like a dad mobile, but that's fine, right? I like it. And I'm like, I believe in this car, right? It's nice. I believe in Subaru. And, I don't take that very far, but right, if I believe in something, it's probably pretty natural for me to talk about it. So if you talk to me about cars, you're probably going to hear about a Subaru pretty quickly, right? And I'll give you a T-shirt or something. I didn't wear any of my Subaru gear because it's weird when you wear all Subaru stuff. So this is not a go wear all the Jesus T-shirts and stuff because let's be honest, okay? That's right. But here's my point. I'm thinking like an ambassador, right? I'm giving things away. I'm talking about it. It comes up often. right? It makes me make decisions when people are talking to me about cars. Wouldn't it be weird if that was me, but I didn't believe in it? Right? If you were like, so what do you drive, Aaron? I'm like, a Corolla. You're like, you're a Subaru ambassador and you drive a Corolla. Okay. Right? Well, what? Well, I don't really believe in it. It just seemed like a nice thing to do. Right? Wouldn't it be weird if I didn't actually believe in the message? But man, when we do believe in the message, right, there's this opportunity that we get to exemplify it, right, for it to make us make different decisions. And I'm not saying that you should wear a bunch of Jesus gear and you should go stand at a street corner with a sign. What I am saying is that if you believe in the message, right, the mission is clear, right? If we've been changed by it, it's going to be what we're known for, right? It's going to be what we most talk about. It's going to be the thing that most comes up in our life because it's the most important thing. And so as we think about being ambassadors of this message, right, that God has given us to take on, right, he's not saying you are the one who saves people. He's not saying that. He's not saying whatever you do is the thing that will save them. What he is saying is here's the message. I have given you this message. I'm making my appeal to others through you and your changed heart and your belief because you've been changed by this message. So as we think about how to do that, one of the things that we're saying, right, is if I'm going to take up this message of reconciliation, I'm going to become Christ's ambassadors. Sorry, no t-shirts, no program for you. I almost wore my Subaru socks today so I could show you, but I was like, you know what? It's too weird, so I'm not going to do it. But when we think about this, right, you're not getting anything, but your life, if it's been changed, what you're actually saying you're going to do is this. What we're doing is we're saying we're going to be a disciple who is making disciples. And I think it's really, really important for us to define what we mean by disciple because there's this idea that I remember hearing growing up in the church, and maybe you've heard about it, that we want to get someone fully discipled. And I'm not saying anything about that whole thing, right? I'm not saying there's any ill intent. What I'm saying is one of the markers of a disciple is that there is no arrival, right? It's a continued state of learning from Jesus, right? I'm going to continually be affected by this message, right? Yes, I've been changed by it. It has become my mission, but I'm not done, right? I'm not where I should be. And yes, Jesus will meet us right where we are. But it doesn't mean, there's no point in life where we've figured it out. Now I can disciple someone. What Jesus is saying, right, is that we're actually committing to be someone who is learning from Jesus and helping others learn about Jesus, right, in their relationship with him. So as we start to look at this and say, okay, I'm not going to look for an arrival place. What I'm doing is I'm committed to learning, to continually let this message that Christ has given affect me. And I'm going to start to give this to others. So what starts to happen is first, right, I'm going to do this in my life, right? I'm going to start to let it change me. It has to change me first. I have to believe in it, right? When we think about it in practical terms of my life, I'm kind of the lid on certain areas in my life. I can't teach someone more than I know. It's why when we talk about being disciples of Jesus, why we look at John 15 and Jesus, it's the one that talks about the vine and the branches. And Jesus said, apart from me, you'll do nothing, because we recognize our need for Jesus to continually teach us, to change us, right? And I can only help someone be discipled as much as I'm willing to be discipled, right? Because as soon as I become the lid, right, as soon as I say I'm going to stop learning, my attitude is that I know it, that, well, I've been around the block, right, and you become a lid on the people that you're leading, right, in your family, your life, right, the people that you want to see changed by the message, right? It's this posture of learning. So we have to do it in our own lives and commit to learning, to continuing to do that. We get to do this in our homes, right, our families, with the people closest to us. Right? And then we get to go do this for the world, right? Part of that Great Commission is that we're going to go, right? And I don't mean you have to go overseas, but out of your normal place. So here's what this starts to look like, right? Is we need to know that wherever we are in life, wherever you are in life, because some of you are stuck at home with toddlers. And I hear you, right? Stuck in an office all day, 8 to 5. Yep, I'm not very mobile anymore. Right, wherever you are in life, we need to know and we need to understand and continually remind ourselves that we can take up the Great Commission in any place in life, right? We see it in the Bible. We see Paul's like, I'm in prison, and he's still doing it, right? We see things happen when people are in different places. We can take it up in any place. The mission is the mission that Jesus has given us. How we do it, how it shows up in our life, the season that we're in, what it looks like, the people that I'm doing it with and giving it to is going to change all the time. If it's the same today as it was 10 years ago, we might want to think about it a little more, right? It's the same reason why when we think about it in terms of the church where we organize things, if we're doing the same thing we've done forever, we better at least take a look at it and make sure that it's still serving the mission, right? Because the mission is here. The mission, I'm going to pick this up at any place in life. If I'm a mom or dad at home, right? If I'm in an office, the mission hasn't changed. If you're in school all day and you're in clinicals the rest of your time and you're studying and the mission hasn't changed. If you're at work and you are just getting slammed in this season and it's like, I don't even know if I'll ever get outside of these office walls, the mission hasn't changed. If you are called overseas, if Jesus is calling you out of where you are now to somewhere else, the mission is the same. If you didn't get it yet, the mission doesn't change, right? When we move in life through seasons, through growth, through periods of life, the mission is not going to change, right? God is calling us to show people his heart on display through this message. And he's invited us to be a direct part of that. He is appealing through us. Right? He's chosen to use us that way. And it's not because he had to, right? It's because he values us. He loves us. Right? This mission was first given to us because we were changed by it. People brought it to us, right? He loves us and he knows that a changed heart, right? Someone who has learned and been changed by this mission will not be able to quit talking about it, right? It will give them a passion for others to know about it. And here's the thing, it can seem a bit overwhelming. You're like, Jesus gave this mission to the disciples and I'm a mom at home with toddlers or I'm in school and I'm supposed to just like take this up. I'm a new believer. What the heck am I doing? Like, okay, well, let's look at this a little bit because here's something we have to remember. The last part of that verse is super, super important. I want you to remember it says, and surely I'm with you to the very end of the age. I have to remind myself of this when I think about serving this mission that God has given us. Sometimes I forget about this part. I'm like, I'm not doing it alone. I'm not doing it in my own strength. I'm not doing it. I got some problems, but I'm not the one doing it. I'm carrying the message forward. The Lord is doing the work through the Holy Spirit in my life. He's going to prompt me and help me if I'm paying attention and committed to learning, right? He's saying, you do it. I've given you the message. You take it forward. I'll be with you. I was thinking about how to put this in practical terms, I think in a lot of dad terms now because it's what I do with most of my time. And my son, Ezekiel, my older son, has been like learning to ride a bike and he finally nailed like riding a bike last week sometime, which I was really excited about. So I asked him if I could share something because we had a conversation about this. And when I think about how the Lord interacts with us over time, right, especially if I say I'm going to have a relationship with Jesus, but oh boy, my life is a mess and I don't know how to do this, right? We've been there. We might be there now, right? Like I want to serve this mission because it's changed my life, but I just don't know how in the world I'm going to do that. So I was helping my son ride his bike, and he did like the balance bike and different stuff for a while. And so I was gearing up to like actually have him ride the bike down the street. I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to be patient, like good dad mode here, super patience, help him build confidence when he like falls off and skins his knee. And so I'm like, I did the old like, yeah, I'm holding on, and you're not, because you lie to your children. It's fine. But it was a good one, I think. So I was like, I won't let go, buddy, until until you're ready. And so I'm helping him, and so we're going, and I let go, and he never stops. He just kept riding. And so at this point, I'm like, oh, he's getting pretty far away. I should probably go get him. And so I'm going down the street, and by the time he looks back at me, I think he was asking, I don't know for sure because I couldn't hear him. He was far enough away. Don't judge me for that. He goes, he was saying something like, Dad, are you still holding on? And I'm like, nope, I'm way back. He looks back here, and I'm like, you're doing it. He never quit riding his bike that day. We were riding around the neighborhood. He's telling complete strangers, yep, riding my bike with my pedals on. like going past them, and they're like, okay, nice kid. And he's going by, he's like, yep, just riding my bike, to every stranger he's ever known, right? It changed him, right? He had a confidence because what he was doing changed him. We were talking later that night, and I thought about this a lot. I was talking to him, and I was like, you know, buddy, I kind of hope a lot of life is like this for you. I'm gonna teach you everything that I know. I'm gonna try to. And I'm gonna be holding the seat for a while, and then like before you know it, you're gonna be doing it yourself. And it's not that I'm not with you, just like not in the same way. And as I started to think about how do we pick this mission up in our lives, I think this is what Jesus does with us. Not lie to us and let us fall off a bike and be too far away, but I think Jesus, he knows where we are. He knows that we're like, if you let go, I'm going to crash. He knows that feeling that we have. Lord, if your hands are not on my life, I don't know what's going to happen. And remember, he's with us. And so we're gonna have to gain confidence with this. It's going to feel like riding a bike a little bit. And I really believe that this is the way the Lord does it, right? Before we know it, we're going to be doing it ourselves. And we know the Lord's with us and how that works. But we build confidence. We learn skills around it. It's how this works. It's what the Lord does for us, right? He's with us. He lets go. He's like, hey, you're doing it yourself, and you're like, I am. I'm doing it. And then you have to learn how to stop, and you don't know how to do that. So, right, but I think that's how it works, right? Is that if you're willing to say, Lord, I need you in my life. I've got my life is a mess, but I see this mission that you've given to others, right? This has changed me. Your love for me, that you want to be in relationship with me, that you fought to reconcile things with me when I didn't deserve it. I'm going to give that to you. And you're like, oh, now this mission's mine? Jesus is like, don't worry. I'm going to be with you. I'm holding on to the seat for a while, right? I think the Lord is patient with us in that way. And then as we gain confidence, right, I think this is what we do for others. We do, as we are discipling people, what that really is I'm coming alongside of you where you are in life, holding on to the seat a little bit, teaching you everything I know, and then I'm going to let you, eventually you're going to be doing it yourself. And what this mission that the Lord has given us becomes is this, over and over and over again with people in our lives. It becomes a little easier when we think of it in practical terms that way. And as I was thinking about this, I'm like, I can name people who did that with me, who are doing that with me in seasons of my life, who really have their hands on, like they were holding on, because I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And then eventually, I look back now, I'm like, oh, I'm doing this myself. Right? And I've moved on, I'm learning the next thing. Right? And those people are learning and growing, and the Lord is with us in this. So that's what we need to remember. And so as we think about this mission, right, if I think about it in practical ways, how do I fit this into what I'm doing? And here's what I'd ask you to think about as we wrap up here is, where's this mission showing up in my life right now? And if you're a follower of Jesus, right, questions to ask yourself is how am I doing this for myself? It starts with your own heart, right? Not only is, if you hope to change people with the message of Christ, you have to first change your heart, right? You have to make sure that every day you're before the Lord, right? It's why we talk about living life with Jesus every day, because I want to make sure that if the Lord has given me this message, and if he's going to give me an opportunity, I want to be ready for that, for one. And two, I want to know that my heart with the Lord is where it needs to be, and that I'm continually learning from him, not closed off like, yeah, I've got a handle on life, but I'm in a place where I'm like, Lord, if there's something in my life that I need to grow in, show me that. Bring someone to help me, right? How am I doing this for myself, right? Commit to being a learner, and ask yourself, is this mission actually informing my decision making? That's a huge one, right? As you go through seasons of life, there's more demands in every way. You probably have, if you have kids and you're in school and you're doing all these things, most busy seasons in life of change, you never feel more pulled in different directions at once. It's not a great feeling. But to make sure that as I do these things and I go into difficulty and things that I know that I'm going to do and the Lord has even called me to, am I still connected enough to him that this mission is informing my decisions even within that tough season, right? Is it informing my decisions? The second thing to think about is this, is how can I do this in my normal rhythm? Right, when we talk about going to make disciples, right, the first opportunity to think of is where is your first circle of influence, right? Maybe it's with your family right now because you're a mom that's home with the kids all the time. You have an amazing opportunity to disciple your children, to be there with your family. And if you're like me, I look at my wife, I'm like, I don't think I would want anyone else to have that opportunity, right? When you think of that, that's the way you value that time and that mission in your family space in a season of life. If you're in an intentional space like college where you're living in a dorm or you're living with roommates, what an incredible opportunity to be with people, to lead them, to lead classmates, right? To pray for opportunities to carry this message out in your normal rhythm of life, right? When I'm at church, right, we have people ask for mentors all the time, right? One of the most asked for things I think over the past handful of years in church is I just need somebody to tell me what to do. And that's the simple way of putting it. But really what most people are looking for is I want to see someone who's done this. I want to see someone who's been there or is in it or through it even. And I need to know that I'm doing the right thing, right? How can I help people around? People that I see normally in my normal rhythm of life. And the third part of this, right, as we look at that total mission is how will God use me in new ways? Right, there's this openness to say, God, wherever you want me to be, wherever you want me to carry this message, I want to go. Right, and it does not look like going overseas all the time or going into the mission field. Sometimes it does. But is there a willingness in our hearts and our minds to say, Lord, this mission that you've given me to carry of reconciliation, I'm going to do it I want to do it in my own life with you. I want to take it in my normal rhythm. But God, where might you be calling me to go? Outside of that, right? Is it overseas? Right? Most of the time, it's just going to be in a way that we don't expect. Right? What's the way that I'm not necessarily expecting, Lord, that you could show me where I might have an opportunity I wasn't aware of that might stretch me, that might make me uncomfortable, take me out of my normal group of people, but you're asking me to carry the message there. Right? Are we praying that way, praying for new ways that God might use us to carry this message? So you're a follower of Jesus, right? These are the things to be asking ourselves about these last words that Jesus gave us and this mission going forward is that. And I would encourage you, if you don't have a relationship with Jesus or you're considering it and you're looking at all this, I want to ask you to consider maybe the fact that you've probably seen this message in a variety of ways. And I want to encourage you to think about it maybe a little differently, right? No matter how the church has maybe messed it up before, how maybe believers have messed it up trying to carry that message to you, and you might feel hurt, you might feel wounded, maybe you're totally new to this. It's the first you're hearing of a lot of this in this way. I want to ask you to not miss God's heart for you in this. If you're considering a relationship with Jesus, if you're exploring it, the thing to catch here is not all the work to do, and not the hard things I'm going to have to give up if I decide to follow Jesus. Right? You need to be aware of that. But looking and see, because of God's heart for me, will help me understand that it's worth it. That however that informs my decisions, that it's going to be worth it when I have a relationship with Jesus. Right? Can you see his heart on display for you? Because I make sure you catch it in that Corinthians verse where it says that he was reconciling us to him, not wanting to hold our sins against us. So for you, whatever it might be that you feel like is holding you away from God, where you feel like he's mad at you, he's disappointed, you've messed it up, his heart is to not hold that against you. That's the message he's bringing. He has reconciled us, you and I, to him through his death on the cross, and he's going to be with you if you choose to do this. Right? That's what I'm asking you to maybe consider today, is to know that God reconciled you to him. Guys, it's an awesome opportunity that we have to see that, God, he can do all this himself. He's plenty powerful, and I'm sure it'd be easier in a lot of ways, but he has chosen to involve us. Not just to sort of, he said, no, I'm giving you the message of reconciliation. I died for people's sins. I did the reconciliation, but I want you to carry the message. It's awesome. Talk about how much someone would value you to trust you to carry that. That's a big deal. The God of the universe who loves you, who loves people and wants to not hold their sin against them, invites you to take that mission up in your life, to carry it forward. It's a pretty humbling thing to think about as we look at priorities in our life and we think about things like, whoa, not only does God not hold my sins against me, he wants me to help get that message out to others, to show his heart to other people. Pretty awesome opportunity that we have. So I'd ask you to consider those couple questions. Think about that, how you can do this in your life, how you're doing this in your life. And I'll pray for us, and the band will give us some time to think about this a little more. Jesus, thank you so much that, first of all, Lord, that you did reconcile us to you. God, you know the things that are often heavy on our hearts that make us wonder, does God really love me, right? Am I really valued? Am I really forgiven? All of that. Lord, you know what those things are that hold us from you. Lord, help us to really understand and start to feel the gravity of the fact that you don't want to hold that against us, that you offer forgiveness there. And God, you don't stop at just forgiving us and reconciling us to you, but you give us something to do, Lord. You give us a mission to be a part of, one that you have been on this whole time. But Lord, when we are changed by that message of reconciliation, you invite us to become a part of what you're doing. Lord, as those who know Jesus, help us not to take that lightly. Help us to look at our life, give it a good look to see, Lord, how might you be calling us to take that forward? And Lord, for those of us that are maybe thinking about a relationship with you, trying to understand you, God, just help them to see your heart for them, specifically for them, that you want to forgive their sins, you do not want to hold their sin against them, Lord, and that whatever changes might come, it's worth it to know the God who's fought that way for us. We love you, Jesus. We're so thankful for your patience with us as we do this, and Lord, your continued faithfulness to be with us as we carry this message forth. Give us courage to do that, boldness to do that. Lord, help us to be open to changing how you might have us do that.